Bo and Luke Nation. I am your co-host, Bo Brabo.
And I'm your other co-host, Luke Carignan.
And today we have the business book strategist, Miss Cathy Fyock. Cathy is an amazing woman. She has done so much in her life. She definitely is right in line with what we talk about on the show, to be, know, and do better, and to keep going after it. Cathy has been in human resources. She's been a consultant. She's an author of 9 books. She is a book coach. She helps other authors do their thing and get their books to market and work through all types of tools and tips on how to write and actually get your book done, which is difficult. She does writing retreats. She does conferences. She's part of the SHRM Council for Louisville. You know, Cathy is just an amazing woman, and she is so helpful. She keeps her clients accountable, and she literally helps people achieve their dreams of writing books and getting a book to market. I cannot tell you enough how important that is when you're trying to write a book, to have someone in your corner batting for you and cheering for you to get it done.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a pleasure speaking with her. I think everyone's going to get a lot of value out of this. And if anybody's ever thought about writing a book and putting their thoughts down, you definitely need to reach out to Cathy. At the end of the episode, she actually gives you information of how you can reach out to her, and a pretty good offer about how you can get a little piece of her time. And if you want any more information on that, you can always visit theboandlukeshow.com. Check us out. Obviously, you're listening to us, so you're on one of our forms of media, Apple, your iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, any one of those. Give us comments, like it, don't like it, leave us some reviews. We take that feedback to heart, and we're always here to do a better job for you. So let's let it rip, Bo.
Let's let it rip. So, Cathy, welcome to the Bo and Luke Show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So, Fyock.
Who is Cathy Fyock? She is the business book strategist. So I'm a book coach, a full-time book coach, and I help professionals and thought leaders write their books as a strategy to grow their businesses, to create a platform, to get more speaking engagements, whatever their goals might be.
Yeah, that's super. And for everybody, we've talked about it before, not to highlight or to keep highlighting on my book, but I met Cathy in that journey.
Yeah.
So it was my journey in the first book and writing a chapter for an anthology project that Cathy was putting together. But aside from writing in that anthology, Cathy was my book coach for a solid year or better, and helping me along that journey and getting things together to write my solo book. So it's super fitting that you join us on the podcast.
No, I love it.
Yeah, and just tell us and share with us your journey. So when did you write your first book?
Gosh, I wrote
because you've written many.
Yes, I've written 9 now, but my first book was published in 1990. So, wow. So yeah, I've been around the block a time or two.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. You've got 9 books now.
Yeah, I started my first book. I knew that as an HR consultant, I needed to differentiate myself from everybody else. And writing a book was probably the single best thing I did in my career to separate me from the pack, give me a lot of credibility, visibility, all of the things that come with a book.
Yeah, fantastic. So that's a good note to follow up on. You did something to differentiate yourself, right?
Yeah.
That can be the toughest part for people, not just individual people as consultants, but companies, businesses. How are you going to compete? How are you going to make the next step? You have to find some way to make yourself unique and stand out. And you did that with a book.
I did. And what's interesting too is looking back, I wrote my very first book on a topic that had never been written on before, and that was on the aging workforce. So when my book came out in 1990, it was the first book about the issue of older workers and the graying of America, and all of
Hmm.
that was quite new. In fact, I was probably beyond the cutting edge. I was on the bleeding edge of the topic. So really
Yeah,
before it became popular or people really understood the significance of the aging workforce.
you wrote a book on it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. So what at that point in time? So now bring yourself to the future where we are today. Um, what have you learned looking back on your findings in writing that book?
Well, what I've learned is a book is powerful. I've always said to my authors that a book is magic, and it can work magic for your career, for your business, um, unbelievable ways. But it certainly did for me because it set me on a course for loving the whole entrepreneurial life. I love being a
Sure.
speaker, a trainer, a thought leader, and an author. So it was really great. And that's why I guess I'm so passionate as a book coach today, is I know the power of authorship and what it can do for individuals. So I'm really, really passionate about helping people get to that huge milestone.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Look, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's darn right incredible. And so I'd love to know like how much Cathy went into your book, Bo, because I've read your book and I'm sure all of our listeners either have or they're planning on reading your book. And it's
Yeah,
just a fascinating journey to me because, you know, obviously I'm the odd man out. I'm the only one on this podcast right now with no book.
you're 10 behind.
Yeah,
No,
that's
11.
I'm 11 behind.
I take credit for the first one, even though I only wrote a chapter.
That's
Right. So
right.
you're
Still
11
counts.
behind. Still
Combined.
counts.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So Luke, I've always been a believer in coaching, period.
Sure.
Even when we look at, I always use the example of Tiger Woods, right? Greatest, even our basketball players, football players, they have coaches. It doesn't matter how good they are in their talent. They have coaches. That coach is a mentor, a guide, an accountability partner, someone to keep you on track, someone to help you through, a sticking point, if
That's
you
right.
will, right? Tiger Woods can go off and win 10 tournaments in a row, and then all of a sudden he doesn't make the cut the next round because there was something in his putting that day. Well, it's the coach who's watching and gets him back on track. So
Yep.
yeah, so when you ask the question, how much is Cathy in my book? Cathy's in my entire book, I would say, because it's that spark, that not just the spark to encourage you and say, yes, you can do it, but it's that constant check-in. How many words are you going to write this week? What's your battle rhythm? What's your plan? When do you write? All of those types of things, Luke, like we've talked about with other guests, even our NFL players who have a battle rhythm.
Sure.
Same thing for writing a book. You got to get yourself into some type of rhythm that you're going to hold yourself accountable to. And then if you're fortunate to have a book coach like Cathy, then they help hold you accountable as well. And I learned so much that I was never a professional writer in any way, but the tips and the tools to help get through writer's block, to look at one of the greatest ones was write a letter to yourself, like from a reader. Like you write your letter as if you're the reader of your book back to yourself and what you learned from your book. And then that starts sparking what you want to write
Wow.
about. I mean, it's things I would have never, ever known if Cathy hadn't been there on that journey with me.
That's
So
super
fantastic.
insightful. So, Cathy, what do you tell people that, and maybe you told Bo this too, that are just thinking about getting started or writing a book, or they're really passionate about something in business, right? I'm in sales, right? So I come from a sea of people that are just really passionate about everything that they do in life, right? So
Mhm.
I'd love to know, like, what is that first step that you tell people to take, and how do you walk them through it?
That's a great question. And what I think is incredibly important is having a strategic plan for your book that aligns with your business or your career, so that you start writing the book with the end in mind. So you know what you want your book to do for you, and then you write your book in a way that will get you there. So starting with that strategic plan. So usually when I start meeting with a client, it's getting clarity on what do you want the book to do for you? How do you want it to be a part of your business and your career? Who is your targeted reader? What's your thesis statement? What is the structure of your book? And then what's the project plan that's going to get you to the finish line? So starting with that end in mind is incredibly important.
That's great advice. And I wouldn't even have thought of that.
Yeah. Yeah, some people just start writing. In fact, some people ask me, well, do I just start writing? Oh, you could, but I would not advise it. You might be writing in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Very much so. If you don't have all of those things that you just talked about, that you could definitely go write about the wrong stuff and it not turn out like what you wanted at all.
And the other thing is you need to really write with your reader in mind. So if you haven't really given a lot of thought to who is that targeted reader, is it the HR professional? Is it the business leader? Is it the frontline worker? I mean, who is your targeted reader? And having that person in mind, because your book is it's about you, it's about your experience and what you've learned, but it's for your reader. So you have to start out by knowing who your reader is, what problems are you wanting to help them solve, and then you can really get clarity about the book.
Yeah, I think that is fantastic. And Luke, I'll tell you, having had that training and coaching from Cathy, and now when I hear even people who have read my book, regardless of everything that they read and they say, when someone says, I felt like you were talking to me, I'm like, I did it. That's exactly what Cathy, what my coach said to do, right? Because you're
accomplished.
Yeah, mission accomplished from a writer perspective, in that you attack that goal of the reader in mind and reading what you're writing. I just saw a blog post the other day from a writer or some writing platform, and it was just a piece of advice that said, writers, stop writing to yourself. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's not about you and your ego and how much you know. It's how much you can help someone else solve their problems. And hopefully you have insight about that and you've spent some time working on that and thinking about that so that you're writing a book that's serving others.
Right. Yeah, that's great advice. Super. So where did you go after? Well, let me go back just a minute, because were you doing HR consulting? Is that how you started in your professional life, if you will?
I've had a really interesting career with lots of really strange twists and turns. I started out to become a music teacher, but then they were laying off teachers in Jefferson County here in Kentucky, where I'm from. And so I had to reinvent myself for the first time and became a payroll clerk, and then stumbled into human resources, and then worked there and thought I would spend the rest of my career in human resources, but was laid off from my job at Kentucky Fried Chicken in the corporate headquarters. And so then I became an HR consultant, and I thought I would be doing that for the rest of my life. But then, just strange twists and turns. But how I came to be a book coach is kind of fun, because what I should probably tell you is, and your listeners, is that I don't like to write, which is kind of odd for a book coach and an author of 9 books, but I really don't like to write. I mean, never once did a teacher ever tell me, gosh, Cathy, you are a gifted writer. You should write. No one ever said that to me, but I just knew that in getting my message out to people, it was an important tool, an important way to get the word out there. I really stumbled into this work as a book coach. I got a call from my chapter of the National Speakers Association. I've been a member of NSA for over 30 years now. And the president said, Cathy, I heard a rumor that you wrote one of your books in less than 6 weeks. Is that right? And I said, well, actually, I wrote at the time 4 of my 5 books in less than 6 weeks. And he said, wow. do you have a process?
Huh?
Wow, that's the most interesting question I've ever been asked. Do I have a, yeah, I guess I do have a process. He said, would you be willing to come and give a program about your process to our chapter? And I said, oh, I would love to do that. He said, but before you say yes, would you be willing to coach a couple of our chapter members who are working on their books and then give a report? And I
Yeah.
said, oh, yeah, that would be way cool. That would be really fun to see if my process, I know it works for me, does it work
Yeah.
for anybody else? So I started working with these two women who were friends of mine. And pretty early on, they said, Cathy, have you ever thought about becoming a book coach? And I said, no, is there such a thing? Is there a need? And they said, yeah, there really is. And a lot of people have this idea, but they don't know how to get started, or they get started and they get stuck. And yeah, a lot of people need that accountability, that cheerleader.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's how I stumbled into being a book coach.
Isn't that amazing? And say,
I know.
Luke, here's the book. Uh, on your mark, from first word to first draft in 6 weeks.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
Right. So, and it comes with an author journal, comes right along with it. So it's fantastic. So, all right. So you stumbled into it. You've had multiple chapters, and now you're just, and you keep, what's fantastic, you keep evolving, right? In your offerings for, well, it's a business. So you're an entrepreneur, but you keep evolving in what you're offering to your past clients, current clients, new clients. Tell us about. I would like you to tell us about how you came up with before we start talking about, because I want to talk about speaking, because that's a
Okay.
big deal for a lot of writers and business professionals to bring all that together, right?
Yes.
Uh, but you started doing retreats as well. I
Yeah.
haven't had the opportunity to participate yet, but how did
Oh,
you come up with that?
they are fabulous. Well, I got, I actually heard a speaker who was talking about her retreats and how she put her business model together. And I thought that just really resonates with me. I just think that that would be a great way to add value for my clients.
Hmm.
And so I actually bid on a coaching package that she was offering through the National Speakers Association, and I won the bid.
Oh
And
wow,
so I started working with her, and she had some great ideas. So I didn't just start from scratch. I really started with really a coach to help me get started in the process.
hmm,
And the retreats have been one of the best things I have done. I started them last fall, and they were face to face. Everybody flew into Louisville for
uh-huh.
the retreat, and then I found this fabulous, fabulous location. This wooded, I don't know, 100 wooded acres, beautiful retreat center, and of course, COVID struck,
Oh
Oh
so
yeah,
no.
I had to go virtual. But actually, the 3 day virtual retreat is pretty awesome too. And I'm finding that that is a great strategy for folks who really want to get a big chunk of their writing done. Um, because sometimes it's just too hard in the middle of a busy work week to
sure.
time out, start writing the book, and there's so many other distractions. So a retreat is really perfect for a lot of people. I've had people that have started on their book and finished their book on the retreat.
Wow.
Now you have to have had a lot of content gathering and really know your
Oh sure.
subject matter. But still, I have had that happen. I've had people get 10,000 words into their book, or the final 10,000 words done. So it's been really exciting to see the results.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that would just, I could imagine the camaraderie even amongst the group as they're working
Oh,
together
yeah.
through things and building new relationships, new networking, and all that would be just side benefits
Oh,
of the retreat.
incredible. Because most all my people, they're business professionals, and they're wanting to
Uh-huh.
grow their business. They're really wanting to go to the next level in their career. And so they're with like-minded individuals who get it, and who get that writing a book is a big challenge and it's a big deal, and we can support one another in that process.
Yeah, I think, yeah. it's just incredible. I hope to be able to participate
Yeah, it's really,
soon.
really fun. Yes, yes.
That's super cool.
Yeah, awesome. So then, speaking of speaking,
Yeah.
so you're this is your, I think, your most recent book, right?
Yes, the speaker author.
The speaker author, right? And that's my aspiration. It's the aspiration of many, that your book brings it's your bit, like, it's the business book strategy. It's your calling card.
Yeah.
It's your credibility marker. You speak on your book and what you wrote about. Lots of great tips in here for all of our listeners who want to write a book or who have written books. How do they make that leap? If they haven't been speaking, what's your advice to them?
Start
That's a tough
speaking.
Start speaking, right? So let's get into the different types.
You know, there's so many groups, and right now, if you are comfortable talking on Zoom, there
Yeah.
are tons of opportunities. Or you can just do your own program. You can do your own webinar. You can invite your own colleagues and friends to hear you speak about a topic. So just beginning. I know when I was first starting way back as an HR consultant, I I put on my own public program. A
Uh-huh.
colleague and I decided that we were just gonna hang out our shingle and we were gonna do some marketing and we were gonna do a 9-city tour and do our program in 9 cities across the eastern United States. And
Awesome.
so we
And you
did.
did it?
And that's really how both of us got our businesses started, because we really didn't have a client base until then, but we developed this following, we developed a lot of great contacts, and we got hired to come in and present our program for within
Uh-huh.
the corporation or within their SHRM chapters. Many of them were HR professionals. So
Sure.
one thing leads to another.
Yeah. Last week, I'll tell you, because it just never dawned on me. And then I was referred by someone in my network to do the webinar. And it's a paid engagement. But I felt really blessed, Cathy, to have had the past several months of just being from home and being on these Zoom calls all the time, right? And talking in this way. And then Luke and I doing the podcast, and this is how we talk to all of our guests. And when he and I are having meetings, because I'm in Ohio, he's in Virginia,
Yep.
we're always on Zoom and we're looking at each other. So we've become very comfortable with this. But I'll tell you, the webinar was different because I had no audience engagement. It was one of those types of presentations where I authored the presentation, I did all the content, and then I had an hour. And these people were getting the SHRM recertification credits for the presentation, but there's no interaction. It's just you speaking to your content for 45 minutes and then answering questions for 15
the
minutes.
black hole. Yeah.
It's the black hole. You're just in your in your home talking away. Like
And you have to bring a lot of energy, because I'm a kind of person, I'm an extrovert. I get energy from the crowd. So
yeah.
for me talking on one of these, so I've learned though that there are some ways that you can engage even on a webinar, and using the chat or using unmuting folks and bringing people on as to spotlight them and so forth. There's lots of ways that you can get engagement, but you have to really look at it.
Yeah, for sure. My scenario was I was not in control. I was just the presenter. So I was going by their rules, right? Fine. And there was none of that. So but that was a speaking engagement, and it's a paid speaking engagement, and that's fantastic, and that's what you shoot for.
Absolutely.
And the book helped. The book definitely helped getting to that point, right?
It does. The book opens doors. There's no doubt about it.
Got it. So what's next for you? Where are you going next? Are you writing another book now?
I'm not writing one right now, but there probably will be at least one more. It seems like a lot of the writing that I've been doing lately has been around battling the negative voice inside your head. It's in On Your Mark, my co-author Kevin Williamson and I call that negative voice the bitch.
Oh, wow.
Because it is a bitch.
Yeah.
That negative voice that says, who do you think you are writing this book? Really, did anybody ever tell you that you were good at this? Um, do you think you're really, don't you think you're just kind of wasting your time with this?
Yeah.
So
That's
the voice can say so many negative things. And so really coming up with strategies to deal with it, to identify it, and
yeah.
to keep combating that negative voice.
Yeah, and that is fantastic, and I think we should, Luke, I think we should talk about that for a minute because
Yeah.
that negative voice can be part of whether you're a writer,
Yes,
right? And who do you think you are?
the
It can be
artist, the business
the artist,
person.
business person, the athlete, the like.
Yeah.
What do you think you're doing? You can't do this or whatever. And if you don't find a way to break through that, it can really bring you down. Yeah, as talking with a friend of mine here locally who has a marketing business, and we're in August we're going to launch this entrepreneur program for our local community.
Mhm.
Once everybody should be comfortable getting back together in groups or whatever the case might be. And when we were talking about it, Cathy, one of the things I said, and it was like a light bulb for him, I said, this is going to be a zone, right? This is an entrepreneur zone with no judgment. And he almost started crying. And he's like, I had my first business idea. I thought I had it. It was fantastic. I loved it. And I told one of my loved ones who about it, and they told me it was the dumbest thing ever. Now in this scenario, and he did, and then he stopped. That was it. There was nothing. So it took him down. So that's the power of another person, but that same power can be in your own head.
Well, probably what was going on is that negative voice was already speaking to him, and then he just got confirmation that
Yeah,
that dumb
like
idea was a dumb idea. So, which is
exactly.
so defeating. I mean, it stops so many of us in our tracks. And I think if we're going to go to the next level of our careers, our businesses, or whatever, we all have to deal with that negative voice.
Yeah,
That's right. Everybody deals with it. I mean, and you have to start somewhere, right?
Yes.
I've learned because I'm an entrepreneur as well, and I've learned that all the good ideas that I have that I think are unique to me, they're actually not. Like other people are having these exact same good ideas. It's just that they're the ones that are executing it.
Yes.
And what's worse is you don't, and I want this to sink in with our listeners. You don't have to have the next Uber. You don't need to have something that's just totally off the wall and different to make money in this world. You actually can go do the tried and proven method that people have done for years and decades, and as long as you start doing it, you're probably going to be successful and make some money. And who knows, maybe find yourself at the right time when you actually have that good idea and then you're ready to capitalize on it.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and even if you're not making millions of dollars, it could be so satisfying and rewarding to
Yeah.
yourself and what you're doing for not only bringing your idea to life or your company to life or helping others find
Yep.
their way, whatever the case might be. And I think I know it's hard because I don't know if every writer goes through it. I know I went through it for a time period. And Cathy, I honestly think it was you. It was you or Kate, the publisher, who just said, I'm positive it was you. The worst, and I've said this before, the best thing about writing a book is people are going to read it. And the worst thing about writing a book is people are going to read it. Right? It's the same thing.
Thrilling and terrifying, all of the
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't, and then you just got to wrap your mind around that old saying that you cannot please all the people all the time. You just can't.
No.
And
No.
there are going to be critics. It's impossible to not have them, but who cares?
Yeah. An interesting story is Allie Plider, who is on faculty on my retreats. She is a
Uh-huh.
full-time writer, and she has written, I think she's on book 50 or 51 right now.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, she writes like Harlequin romance novels and
Uh-huh.
interesting, fun things. So not all nonfiction, although she has written some nonfiction. But what she said to me this was to me amazing. After 50 books, she said, I still get the visit from the negative voice. And she said, it's almost predictable now. She knows that it takes her so long to write a book, and it's at that 80% mark or so of completion, that she always gets the voice that, and it says to her, this plot really doesn't work. These characters are not good. You
Oh,
probably need to go back and scrap the whole thing.
wow.
And so now she sort of laughs. It's like, well, here it comes. So just
Yeah.
because
So
you
now,
battle it, yeah. So just because you battle this demon once doesn't mean you've won the war. It just
yeah.
means you won that particular battle. So you have to keep going back into battle with that negative voice and know that it's going to be persistent because it's just trying to protect us. It's keeping us safe. You know.
Yeah. No, sometimes it's good for sure. It can keep you on track for some things. Yeah, but there's a point where you got to get you
Yeah,
got
when
to
it's time to take a risk.
control it enough.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And I think this was the very first book of yours that I actually bought for my daughter because she was big into blogging. And is the
Oh,
first copy I had. Yeah, blog to book.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's really cool, right?
I
Which,
love this. This is a concept that is so great for so many busy people because most everybody has enough time to write a blog a week or so. And
uh-huh,
if you can write a blog a week, and if you can write the right blog each week in a controlled and focused and structured way, at the end of a year, you can have a book because blog to book is actually 52 little chapters, and I wrote 52 questions that would be about how you put together a blog to book. Then I went through the questions and I looked at the blogs that I'd already been writing, that
hmm,
I'd written for the past couple of years. I went through, repurposed those, kind of cleaned them up, spruced them
right.
up, created some unifying features, and boom. Once I put all the content I'd already written, I was like 2/3 done. And then all I had to do was just answer the questions that still remained. And I was able to do this book in about 3 weeks.
Wow.
Three
Wow.
weeks and 2+ years of writing all of those blogs. But
Uh-huh.
that's the power of this concept, which is great for busy professionals.
Sure. Yeah, I talked to Luke, and it's that idea of your book about blog to book. But like we're doing podcasts every week, and we're talking about a lot of great stuff, a lot of great. There's just great content. Lots of themes come out based upon the types of guests we have and the
That's
different
right.
types of things that we're talking about. And I find it interesting that the podcast platforms, or the platform we use called Buzzsprout, where it hosts all of the episodes and then pushes it out to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all the other ones.
Mhm.
Um, they keep working on, and about every couple of weeks they'll send us out an email blast that said they've worked on their transcription service where they can take your audio and make it into text. And I'm like, yes, because you can take everything you're doing, you can turn it into a book. And the next thing you know, it's like podcast to book, right? Um,
Right.
but when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, because we're working on audio content, right? And we have it all. It's all
Right.
If you
recorded.
develop all that content, I think it's a shame if you don't repurpose your content in some other
Yeah,
way. Because, you know, our readers, our listeners, our clients, people like to digest information in different ways. Some people like to hear it, some people like to read it, some people like to have it in all different sorts of ways. So by thinking about repurposing your content, it's a wonderful concept. And really, every entrepreneur should be thinking about, if you have mastery over a body of knowledge and you're thinking about content creation, and most entrepreneurs are, then it's a matter of repurposing that content and seeing how many different ways can you package it and sell it to the person who needs it.
yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. See there, Luke?
Yeah,
You-
100%. I have a book, Tim Ferriss, who's also a podcaster and author. And Tim, if you're listening, good for you. That's awesome. I listen to you too, but you should use Cathy Fyock as a book coach for you as well.
yeah.
But he did the same thing. I have a giant book. It's one of these behind me here called Tools of Titans. And
Mhm.
he took all of his podcasts, and Cathy, he went to, I want to say Paris for like maybe 6 weeks. Like he did it in a condensed period of time, like you're saying. And just said he sat there and, drank coffee and sat in outdoor cafes
Yeah.
and summarized all of these podcasts that he did in like 2-page summaries. And it's great because you can just flip to each one. Like you can keep it next to your bed. You have 5 minutes before you go to bed. You can learn a really good lesson, and, but we should definitely do that.
Yeah, and that's what I love about Cathy's books. And I had a discussion with a friend of mine as well before my book actually came out. But one of the things I love about Cathy's book, when you're thinking about professional books, right? And why do you buy the book? What do you're trying to learn something, a tip, a tool, something to put in your own toolkit that will help set you apart from your own competition, right? So Cathy's books definitely do that. It's full of the tools and tips, and they're ones where you can just leave it laid open on your desk while you're working through something. Especially, I really love speaker to author because there's so many good tips on how to do proposals, what you should be pitching, questions you should ask about who's ever coordinating a speaking event, whatever the case might be. Because it's not a fiction novel, right? It's great because it's not a textbook like you're sitting in a college course. This is real life. Somebody's done this. Yeah, this is somebody's body of, it's the thought leadership. It's the body of knowledge that they've had from their career that they're sharing with you. And I'd be hard pressed that you don't get something out of the books that you buy and you actually read and study and so forth. So Cathy, I think they're phenomenal, and I appreciate them very much.
Thank you.
They're definitely excellent. So tell us about, because one of the other things you do that we haven't talked about yet for your authors in the coaching world, you have author groups, you host webinars with them, you do all kinds of events with your authors. You have an author mastermind group where you bring all those people together to talk about what they're doing, how their launches are going. Everybody shares their pain, their celebration, which is, you've created community is what you've done.
Yes, I'm a big believer that, I know a bunch, but I don't know everything. And what I love about community is that we can all help and support one another. And the whole is greater than any of the individual parts on their own. For example, one of my authors is, when she started her business and her book, she had no Twitter followers. She grew strategically to about 16,000 followers in 1 year. And that was just by growing it strategically. And so she gave a program for us, because I have Twitter followers, but I don't have that many yet.
Yeah.
And although I used some of her tips and I doubled what I had. So it's really great stuff when you can share the expertise of everybody else in the room. And that's what I love about the community that I've created with my author.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
I'll follow you on Twitter, Cathy.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I actually, yeah. And it's just fantastic. And that's the power of community and sharing knowledge and the books. We did Luke, a couple of weeks ago, we had and to our listeners, we had a reunion from the anthology series books, and all the authors came back. And even in that, I learned new things that I turned around and put into place, like help a reporter out, right? For where journalists go to find people. So I've been doing inquiries. One was looking for super managers with this podcast through this software company. And they emailed me just before this show, said, "Hey, we'd love to have you on the podcast." Yeah. So, you learn something, you write it down, you're like, that sounds really cool, right? Let me follow up with that. And look what you did, right? And those are the types of things that, unless even somebody tells you, you don't know are happening. But I will just tell you, Cathy, know that they're happening.
Yeah.
That you bring that together, you bring those people together and they're talking, and people are listening and taking notes and then taking action on what they're learning. And I'm one of them. So I'm incredibly grateful. Yeah, for all of that, all you do and the effort you put into that community, for sure.
And one thing I just got to say, and I know our listeners can't see Cathy right now, but it is impossible to look at Cathy and not smile. Like, I think that's just, there's some people in life that you come across where you just get that reaction and you can't control it. Cathy, you are definitely one of those people.
Well, good. Well, good. Well, I'm really passionate about what I do. I really, really love what I do, and hopefully that shows. So
It does. It absolutely
Yeah.
does.
And I put your picture out on our website under our upcoming guests. So once the episode releases, that'll be in our guest bios,
great.
and people can see who you are then, and put the face with the voice,
Yeah.
and so forth, which is fantastic. And that's where we will list access to your website so people can find you. Easy.
Awesome.
Right? CathyFyock.com.
CathyFyock.com.
Yep. And that's Cathy with a C, and Fyock is Fyock. CathyFyock.com. And you'll find her all over Amazon as well if you want to check out her books.
Right.
But they're on her website too. So you can get all kinds of great information. And I tell you, if you're thinking about writing a book, or even if you've written a book or you're on to your next book and you've never had a coach, it's well worth the time to spend with Cathy to help you in that journey and get some extra value, put some more value in your book, for sure. Yeah. Luke, any follow-up parting thoughts?
I have just a ton swirling through my head. I mean, I guess for the listeners out there, for that person that just isn't sure, Cathy, right? Like they have some ideas in their head. It could be on whatever. Let's say it's either about business or it's how to, you know what? How about how to, grow a perfect lawn? Growing lawn is really difficult. They just have an idea. Where should they start?
Whatever your passion is or your business is, or maybe it's part of your life story. You have gone through some adversity and you've come out on the other end. People need to hear your story. So I'm a big believer in encouraging people to tell their stories. And what I'd like to offer to all of your listeners, if they're interested in scheduling a strategy session with me, it's totally complimentary, no strings attached. Just send me an email, Cathy@CathyFyock.com. Say, I'd like to schedule a strategy session, and we'll do a 30-minute complimentary strategy session to talk about your book idea.
That's awesome. That's huge. Big value. And just so you know, Cathy, we have a social media manager. She listens to every episode before they go out. She'll put all of that in our social media blasts that go out, so people will see that as well. As they're learning that your episode is live. So we will definitely include that for you. I think that's key. So that's fantastic. Good stuff.
That's huge. Thank you.
Yeah. So Cathy, we end every episode with "That's a wrap." So you wanna take us out?
That's a wrap.